Hey, hey, hey. 83weeks.com. Glad you joined us. We have a special guest. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this one for about 2 weeks now. Vampiro, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, brother. It's good to see you again, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Where did we run into each other? What city was it in? I don't even remember.
I think it was New York. Wasn't it Long Island?
Yeah. It was Long Island. We had tables right next to each other, so we had plenty of time to chat.
Yes, sir.
It was fun. I love doing those things. I'll be honest with you, Vamp. I don't know how you feel about them, but I've been doing them now for about 5 or 6 years. And the first couple times, I didn't enjoy it at all. I had to really work hard to, because people come and they want to talk to you. They want to talk about wrestling. And I just had a shitty attitude about it. And I kind of just didn't enjoy it. I did it, but I didn't enjoy it. And then over the last couple of years, I just started realizing that, man, all those people that come up to you, and yeah, they want an autograph, but what they really want is just to make eye contact and talk to you. And a lot of times they don't know quite what to say or they're nervous, but if you loosen them up a little bit, make them feel comfortable, look them in the eye, smile at them, ask them where they're from, they open up. And you hear so many great stories from people about how much professional wrestling meant to them as a child, or how they bonded with their dad or their brother or their uncle or their mom or their grandma. In my case, it was my grandmother that turned me on to professional wrestling. I love hearing those stories. So now when I get a chance to go, I look forward to it. And then when I get to sit next to somebody I know and we get to riff all afternoon, that's fun too. So can't wait for the next one.
I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you. I think a lot of it has to do, there's a few things. I've never really done it. I never really had the opportunity to, so I'm starting to do it now. I've maybe done 4 or 5 of them in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm like you. I appreciate it right now. I think a lot of the mental health stuff that comes with being in the wrestling business, it's really hard to be around people, and especially people who support us and they want to talk about wrestling, and that's what we want to get away from. And that might be offensive to somebody, so I understand what you're saying. But once you embrace it and you understand that that love is for you, you earn that. I mean, I saw you happy. I was like, you know what? He's in it. He's feeling it. And it was just good to see you in a good place. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it was a struggle for me in the beginning, and I don't know why. I don't know, other than I guess for a long time I was really trying hard to put professional wrestling behind me and focus.
Did you ever take a break from this? Did you ever take a break? Did you ever do that? Just let it go for a minute?
Oh man, I've been fired a lot. You get a lot of breaks when you're someone like me. You can't hold a job. You get a lot of downtime.
Yeah, I get yes, but I meant inside spiritually, because it's almost like an addiction, and it's like that withdrawal, and it was fucking brutal. Yeah,
I talk about that a lot. I think about it a lot, and we're all of the we were in the wrestling business and part of the traveling circus. And most of our peers, people that we really know and have known for a long time, were a part of that traveling circus. One big happy family. Well, happy, not the right word, but one big family anyway. Dysfunctional as it may be sometimes. But you get addicted to that. I think people get addicted to the energy that you create when you're in the ring. When you make contact with the audience and you connect with them, and they're reacting the way you want them to react, and you're doing the things that they're hoping you're going to do. That exchange of energy is really highly addictive. And I think it's the same for rock stars or actors and actresses. Once you get that bug of performing in front of a live crowd, man, it's a tough needle to get out of your arm, to be honest, for a lot of people. Man.
Yeah. I loved what you just said. A lot of us come from broken homes or situations, working in situations where we use our fists a lot. So we go into this industry, and when you come from nothing and you're standing in front, you show up to the arena, you have your car rented, you're flying first class, you're in the best hotels, you got the best food, you're on national television, and all of a sudden that's taken away, and you got to go back to somewhere where before you came from. Right. That really fucks up a lot of people. And how many of our generation, they're not here anymore for the same reason.
And again, you look at rock and roll, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's a tough life, but we got through it, brother. But I want to hear more about you because honestly, Van,
Sure.
I've known you for a long time. We worked
Mhm.
together.
Yep.
But I want to know, where did you come from? What did you do before you got into wrestling?
I created the world. They wrote books about me.
That was
They
you.
talk about me every Sunday.
Man.
Well, when I met you, I've been on tour since I was 14 years old. When I came to WCW, I was already on tour wrestling. I got to WCW, I think I was like 35, and I've been touring since I was 14. So I've either been playing in bands or semi-pro hockey or pro wrestling. So living in Mexico, you know, doing movies and working in soap operas and choreographing fights. I never really thought wrestling it happened to me by an accident. And I was a street kid. I was living in Los Angeles. I was working for bodyguarding different bands and some pretty famous artists. So I was part of one of the biggest music scandals in history. You know, I was there from the beginning to the end with Milli Vanilli. So I took all of that to Mexico. And in Mexico, I really got into studying magic, spirituality, history. And I started dedicating myself to the study of the paranormal and occultism. And the persona in wrestling was kind of that was what I didn't really want to get into. I wanted to play music and study, you know, history and ghosts and paranormal and get into magic. But wrestling for me just kind of exploded. I was in the right place at the right time. And I was doing all that. And then I came to WCW. So I wasn't new when I got to WCW, and I wasn't of Mexican origin. So when I got there and everybody was like, does he even speak English? And he's not dark skinned and he's kind of tall. And it was kind of like, fucking relax. Everyone's like, whoa. So I was just been rock and rolling since I was 14, brother.
Where'd you grow up? What part of?
I was born in a small town called Thunder Bay, Ontario, but I moved to Montreal when I was real young. And I was kind of floating around Montreal, New York, and Los Angeles in the alternative music scene in like the 80s, mid 80s and stuff like that. Then I got into martial arts and started training Krav Maga and teaching Krav Maga. So that would take me wherever I would do a seminar. I would look for a local music scene and I was just trying to find it.
Why Krav Maga? Of all the different martial arts, why that one?
Because I was involved with some things that aren't really that nice, gang stuff, organized crime stuff. And when I was really young, you know, I was playing hockey, and one of my jobs in hockey was to fight. And then when I started, you know, when I left home and I was kind of living on the street a little bit, you know, they used to send me to collect money, and I didn't know anything about that world. And I was getting my fucking ass kicked, and I was, you know, there was guns involved and stuff. And I'm like, Krav Maga is such a discipline, and it's such a hardcore thing that I needed to know how to hurt somebody so that I wouldn't get hurt. You know, living in the streets was the real deal. But I fell in love with it, and then I started to decide that once my wrestling career was done, I wanted to open a gym and be a Krav Maga instructor. But as my career was coming to an end, I got involved with the Guardian Angels in New York City. So
Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah, well, Curtis. So walking the streets of, you know, the Bronx, Brooklyn, you know, Mexico City, Los Angeles, you know, there was, you know, I was kidnapped twice. There was a lot of guns involved, a lot of really heavy shit. So, you know, I'm going home at night, and Krav Maga was all about that. So that's kind of why that happened.
Interesting. And did you get to meet Curtis?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I see Curtis all the time. I talk to him all the time. Sure.
Do you know that he made at least one appearance, maybe several appearances in WCW?
I know he did. I know his wife, his first wife, she was in WWF. But I know that, and then the Big Boss Man did his thing. But I know Curtis loves wrestling. They all the guys.
I brought him in because when I brought Big Boss Man in from WWF, we obviously couldn't call him Big Boss Man, so we called him the Guardian. And
okay, yeah.
Curtis showed up and introduced him, and Ray went up to New York and, you know, had the flying the colors and the whole 9 yards and patrolled with Curtis and the team. And Curtis really did. There you go.
25 years, brother.
Curtis did a great job. I like that guy. He's a straight up dude.
He's running for mayor again. Curtis, you know, he was shot. You know, they tried to kill him. You know, he's in his late 60s. I'm telling you, Eric, fucking crazy. He sleeps on the floor in his radio station office. He doesn't, you know, everything's paper. You tell him something and he pulls it. He knows it by memory, and he walks those streets like a motherfucker every day. I can't keep up. None of us can keep up with him. And he knows New York better than New York knows New York. He knows it inside out. It's an experience to be around him. It's an education.
He's got to be really well connected, and he's got to know both sides of the equation, right?
Oh,
I mean, he spent a little time on the dark side in order to be good at
what he does. Sure. I mean, the Guardian Angels, they used to have when Broadway was infested with crack cocaine, the Guardian Angels had a truck, like a U-Haul truck, and they would roll up to these drug dens, you know, hoods and bats, and they would go in there and they would beat the shit out of these people and take all the drugs and, you know, pour soda pop on it. And, you know, if they found a child molester, things like that, I shouldn't be saying this, but I didn't do it. You know, they would walk up to the top of a building and, you know, things happen.
Wow.
So Curtis is a rock star. No doubt about it.
Make a hell of a man. New York needs somebody like that, right? I mean,
I think, you know, when the last time we did the election, you know, the whole Jewish community was behind it. Everybody was behind Curtis. And there was a shooting in Harlem. And I was there, and Curtis was like, we got to go. And I was like, Curtis, he goes, but first we're going to go here because this guy got hit by an axe in the bank, and we got to go and we got to show the people. And I said, yeah, but Harlem, there's a fucking active shooter. Like, you can't say that when you got the colors on and you got the beret and everything. And I'm like, oh, man, and you're going for mayor and you're, all right, let's go. Eric. It's another thing, man. It's another thing.
So let's go back to you. And
sure.
Good luck to Curtis. We'll cheer him on from the sideline. We can't vote for him, but we'll cheer him on for sure.
Yeah.
But so you're rock and roll, you're touring, you really want to be a musician, you're doing the hockey thing because you're Canadian and you don't really get to vote on that. You have to, you're a male, you're Canadian, you have to play hockey.
Yes, sir.
But what was your first day on the job in professional wrestling? How'd that start?
You know, I was obsessed with the Road Warriors, you know, when I saw them in the AWA, and, you know, I was really getting into music, and then I heard the Black Sabbath and I heard the entrance. And I was like, what is this? You know, and then Mad Max was out and starting to go to the gym. And, you know, you saw these guys that were just jacked up and they would press and they would hit them and their opponents wouldn't get up. I was like, fuck. Because I was a hockey player, but I was kind of outgrowing hockey. And I was really in love with music, but I was really young and I really couldn't find guys who wanted to commit to a band. And I saw wrestling and I'm like, I can make a character and I can be an athlete and mix my two loves. So when I was really young living in Thunder Bay, I saw that Montreal had a international wrestling, and I went to an event in Ottawa and Abdullah the Butcher was there, and I just wouldn't leave him alone until he finally called the guy who set up the ring over, and he said, get this fucking kid away from me. and I was like, look, I sold my hockey equipment. I bought a bus ticket. I don't have any money and I can't go back home. I want to do this. And I wouldn't leave. So what they did was they let me sleep in the ring truck, and I would help sell pictures and carry the guys' jackets and build the ring, clean the ring. And they would, you know, pay for my food, but I would sleep in the truck. And after a few months, they said, if you stick it out, you know, we'll start to, you know, bring you in the ring and show you. But they would beat on me and rib me and all those things. This is the early 80s. So my first actual show.
How old were you about at this time?
I just turned 15. So like I had left when I was 14, 15, you know, but my first dressing room was the Samoans, Nick Bockwinkel, Ric Flair, Dino Bravo, Rick Martel, Abdullah the Butcher, and Stan Hansen. That was a house show. That was the dressing room. That was the crew where I kind of got educated in.
That sounds like an AWA card.
Because Rick Martel was a lot in the AWA.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Nick Bockwinkel as well.
Yeah, Bockwinkel and you know, the Road Warriors would come in all the time. So, you know, it was really affiliated with Rick and the AWA, but then they would have these super shows where Ric Flair would come in and a couple guys from that area, those territories, because WWW F didn't even have national television yet. It was still kind of just like New York area. And they even had their offices in Canada, Capital Sports, I think it was called, or something like that. So it was really weird, but it was at the beginning of it all. It was right around, like very close to or right after the first WrestleMania. Things were really about to go crazy. Yeah. And I met Hulk, you know, I remember just shaking his hand. I was like putting on a baseball glove, and I was just like, holy shit. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. I was shocked. I was like, I never seen a man like that before. I didn't know what to do. And
back then he was probably pushing about 330.
Oh,
I mean, he's a big bone, tall person anyway.
Yeah, he's Hulk. But then I wrestled him in WCW, and I'm like, holy fuck. And I said, Terry,
oh, really? That's right. That's right.
And I said, listen, I'm about to cry right now. I don't even know what to say to you. And I just marked out big time. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Nothing wrong with that, man. It just love for the business and also being grateful for an opportunity, because that's a hell of an opportunity.
Oh, thanks to you. I told you when I saw you, and I'll say it here if you don't mind. I am so grateful. You know, I was in a really bad place, and I really don't have anything positive to say about my experience in WCW, except for three things. The love of the fans, and that I haven't been forgotten, and I was only there a short time, and the experiences of working with some of my idols. The other one is I am so grateful that out of all of these people in the world at that point in time that wanted to be in this business, you took the time to give me an opportunity. And I'm so grateful to you, because even though I've been in this business for 700 decades, and I did it a long time before I got to WCW, knowing I had to fight tooth and nail for everything. I was always on the outside. I was always blocked. I was always blackballed, you know, a lot of, you know, politics, jealousy in this bullshit business. But you were the only one who afforded me the opportunity to really live my dream. And I just wanted this. I thank you. I thank you every time I see you, and I'm going to thank you forever. So I'm so grateful to you for that opportunity. Truly,
well,
from your heart.
That. But, you know, opportunity, I mean, right place, right time, everything, you know.
Yeah. Hey, man.
A lot of things go into an opportunity, and everything just worked out great. I wish it would have worked out better for you. I wish you wouldn't have been in a tough spot, but we all go through it. And sometimes the best opportunities come at the worst time, you know.
You know what happened, and I'll never forget it. You know, I got hurt right near the end, and I broke my neck in a pay-per-view Halloween. But I'm not complaining about my time in WCW at all. I enjoyed it. But there was one moment I won't forget, and I had to wrestle one of the Steiner brothers. He beat the fuck out of me. He was mad that he had to wrestle me, and he cross-faced me, and my teeth were bleeding, my lips were split, and I was like, fuck me, you know what I mean? And we went to there was a play, it wasn't a gorilla, it was, you know, you were doing your thing, and we both went in there with the agent, and he was pissed, and he was slamming shit, and he was like, fuck this, fuck that, and I went up to you, and I stuck out my hand, and I said, thank you, sir, for the opportunity. And that was the day you decided to give me a push, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you.
You bet. It had to be Scott Steiner, right? Because that doesn't sound like Rick.
No, it was Rick.
Oh, it was Rick.
Scott was my boy. Yeah, oh. Rick and I are okay now, but he didn't like me very much back then.
Wow. What's the craziest thing you recall? I know this is this is the kind of question that the people listening really like, because they don't get a chance to hear you in this kind of a format very often. But of all the crazy shit you saw in Mexico, what was like the craziest of them all?
Oh, fuck.
I know, right?
I mean, I see things every day. I mean, when there's a student march, like a government protest, it turns into a riot. There are so many people. I used to live in a high-rise building, and you would watch these students come in. It looks like ants, and the fucking street is moving so much that your building starts to move with the march. That kind of shit scares you. I was swimming in Cancun, a little island off Cancun one day, and this kid comes up to me with a Coke can, and he says, do you want to hug a shark? And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And he says, yeah, for $1. And I was like, bullshit. I put $1 in. The fucking guy dove between my legs, and he came up with a shark, and he put it in my arms. That scared the shit out of me. I'm standing right there, and there's a shark between my legs. I didn't even fucking know it. So that freaked me out too.
And how fast was he to be able to catch a shark?
Dude, I don't care. I got the fuck out of that water before I don't care. I was faster than him. But yeah, that kind of shit. Wrestling was mental down here. Sometimes we had to do 3 shows in one day in the same building, and each show was sold out, and there was like 20 to 30,000 people, and the buildings would shake. So that kind of stuff is scary because people are so passionate. So it's not like, what is the craziest thing? Fuck, what isn't crazy? This is probably, I'm just waiting for something to happen, because I'm really into magic. So I go to the pyramids and I do all these crazy shit. And there's some hidden UFO bases at the bottom of a volcano. And so I do weirder things. And there's a whole cult down here, the Santa Muerte. I go to those masses just to see the people worshiping another deity. So there's a lot of voodoo, a lot of Santeria. So I see some really heavy shit like that. But, this is a PG audience, I'm assuming. So we can't really talk about that stuff.
It's a little niche. It's a little bit niche.
Yeah, but so all that exists, and do I see it all the time? Yeah, for sure.
What are you doing now?
Yeah.
What's a day in the life of Vampiro like now?
I'm blessed that I've got a pretty successful podcast in Latin America. I'm about to sign a deal with the company Bloody Disgusting. They're a horror company. They have like their own channel called Screambox. It's kind of like Netflix for horror movies of all the genres of all the timing. And I'm converting Vampiro into a version of Elvira because I'm doing a lot of paranormal work, and I'm coming into the United States on that TV show and with the radio and the podcasting and the video casting. So it's just an extension of my character. But now that I'm kind of more goofier than before, I kind of not taking it as seriously. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. And I'm really getting into documentary filmmaking. So I'm exposing the urban legends, the actual history behind things. So I'm really studying that, and I've got a partner in my life, and she is one of the top biohackers in the United States, and she's really involved in alternative medicine and the whole peptide movement. So being involved with that stuff and being an alchemist and believing in magic, and we have these conversations, about magic and spirituality and science. So I'm just so deep into that world, and I think it's I think the best way to say it is just I'm really in love. So it's kind of, I'm happy.
I mean, the things you're interested in, the ghosts and spirit world and all of that. That's, I mean, if you can find a way to weave it in and out of your wrestling kind of stories and dialogue.
Yep.
I think some of the most popular podcasts out there are that category, the things that you're interested in. So
it's a heavy topic, it's very popular because there's such a spiritual awakening worldwide, and we're closer now than ever to a lot of answers. They're finding out the truth about Egypt. There's different practices going on. The whole manifestation movement of being in contact with not so much aliens, but with our true past. So there's so many more people in tune now that the frequencies are changing. So I believe that, ghost stories and telling ghost stories and scaring people, I fucking love that. No doubt about it. I slept in morgues. That was kind of crazy. I slept I was buried alive in a coffin for a couple hours when we recorded that. That kind of shit. I love that. But actually going to where Jesus Christ lived when he was a child in Egypt and seeing his handprints on the wall and seeing physical evidence that the person we know as Jesus Christ exists, that's fucking mind-blowing. To understand there were 22 versions of him, to know that the King James Bible, King James was a politician who changed religion to suit his political needs. But before the Bible, he wrote paranormal and witchcraft and demonology texts and books. Before him, Constantinople, right? He changed religion too. So once you get into that rabbit hole, I don't want to do anything else, man, because it's so mind-blowing, our truth. Yeah,
it's fascinating. And for your wife, you're speaking of rabbit holes, the biohacking world is another
fascinating. My future wife. She's about
future wife.
Yeah.
That is that's a fascinating rabbit hole. My wife, Lori, and I are deep in it.
You're looking good.
Well, thank you. I'm feeling good. I've been working at it pretty hard, so thanks for noticing.
Right away, I told you. I was like, holy shit. You know,
just, you know,
yeah, you got them fucking Lee Haney forearms, you know?
I just, yeah, I've lost a lot of weight.
Hmm.
I went on the carnivore diet and started working
How do you like
out.
that?
I'll never go back. I'll never go back to eating the way I used to eat.
Yeah.
First of all, it suits my lifestyle. It's easy for me. I don't feel like I'm giving up any, because I've cut carbs out of my diet probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
For the most part, you know, I'd go off the wagon every once in a while.
Sure.
But for the most part, I was about 90% clean on carbs
Okay.
before I got into carnivore. So making that transition for me was really simple.
Okay.
And I look at food as nothing more than fuel. I don't look at it as a reward or a goal or, man, if this deal comes together, let's go out and have a celebratory dinner. I just was like, okay, how much protein, how many carbs, if any, how much nutritional fat, how big a piece can I eat? What time is it? Okay, good. Eat that, move on. I don't, you know, I've actually divorced myself emotionally from food. Once I started looking at food as nothing but nutrition, it made everything so easy. It's a head game. You've got to get past the addiction to carbs and sugars and all that shit that just makes you feel horrible.
Well, yeah. Now, you know, centuries past, the school of thought is we had some of our DNA manipulated, correct?
I do not know that.
Yeah, that's how we went from ape-like creatures to us, was gene manipulation by our creators of source. That's a very big school of thought, and that's why we are the way we are today. But we used to live longer, so they manipulated it again, so we shortened our lifespan. But food, if you don't use it as nutrition, if you use it as medicine, and you change the frequency when you're cooking, if you have a speaker this big, like a beer can, a Coke can, or whatever, and you play certain frequencies, healing frequencies, while you're cooking the food, it will change the structure of the food, and you are consuming that positive frequency when you eat your food. So it's not just nutrition. You're actually healing your body and filling in. That's what peptides do. They fill in the amino acids that you're missing. So if you put certain frequencies into what you're doing while you're cooking, your water, what you drink, if you do all of this, you're teaching your food where to heal you. Magic is very strong, my friend. So if you tried that and you're mixing it with the biohacking, that's a big part of it.
I'm going to give that. I'm going to talk to you more about that offline.
Sure.
And I know that sounds crazy to people, but first of all, just the idea. You've mentioned vibrations 2 or 3 times so far. We've been doing this for 27 minutes, and I've heard you reference vibrations. I also believe very much in the frequencies and what and how and why people are attracted to each other or other things, or why they're not attracted to them. And I think, you know, you hear people say all the time, oh, this thing has a good vibe, or this person just has a really good vibe. Well, that's saying this person, whatever frequency they're on, is comfortable for you to be around because you're probably on or about that same frequency. It's when you're, you know, disparately on the opposite ends of the frequency scale is when you get uncomfortable. So I'm a big believer, man. Big believer.
Yeah, it all depends what you absorb and what you let in. You know, if somebody's a very negative person and they're angry at everything and they're not accepting love into their heart yet from themselves. So they're blaming you for the way they feel. That's why it's uncomfortable. Did you see the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman?
I did, but I don't remember it much.
She was with her family and she kept hearing, you know, strangers in her house and she thought it was haunted and all that kind of stuff. And she was hiding in the closet, moving around the whole movie. And at the end of the movie, she's the ghost. She didn't know she had passed on. And the other family was listening to her. So they were searching at the same time. That is such a thing. It's like The Walking Dead was an advertisement. Hey, COVID is coming. This is how all you motherfuckers are going to act once there's no food, there's no this, there's no that. You're all going to turn on each other. Watch. So I believe like movies tell you what's coming. And this, if frequencies, vibrations, there really are no ghosts. There are different dimensions. And when you hear banging and you hear movements and things move, There's other interesting people on other spheres and other vibrations that we can't see because our human eye can't pick it up. It's moving too fast. They're trying to see what's on the other side too. So we hear them and we think it's a ghost. It's just energies connecting. And
Fascinating.
Isn't it?
Fascinating. So when you mentioned the horror company that you're working with, I presume they're making films, comics. What's their?
They do. You know, I think their site. I think they got like 40 million subscribers. So they got that the Netflix version. They got every horror movie you can find. They do a lot of documentaries. They do a lot of, you know, famous actors from horror movies host certain shows. They have a big podcast network, and they do all the horror conventions. So it's an industry just like wrestling, same kind of thing. And we met at a convention, and they were really impressed with my strange knowledge, and we just clicked, and I love it because it's a whole new extension for Vampiro, right?
And I've said this before on these shows that one of the things I get fascinated with, and one of the reasons I like doing things like this and connecting with people that I've worked with back in the day. I hate when I say that. There's just certain phrases when I use them, it pisses me off because they're just so overused.
Back in the day, you don't like that one?
No, because it's just, oh gosh, if I've heard someone say that one time, I've heard it a million times. Back in the day, and usually it isn't that long ago. Like they're talking 5 years ago. Back in the day, what was I talking about? Man, it was 4 or 5 years ago. Like,
I have a hard time with that wrestling podcast because it's all a bunch of old dudes that are just, I remember when in this new generation. Well, fucking stop already. Be thankful for what you did. Don't complain.
I agree.
Right?
One of my biggest bitches with guys like us who were in the business and still talk about it is when you have that perspective of, oh, it was never as good as it was when I was doing it. You know, my era of professional wrestling, that was the best. Well, it was the best for you because you were in the middle of it. You were getting paid. So, yeah, it was cool for you. You got to go on national television and stay in nice hotels and get picked up at the hotel and driven to the bill, whatever. You know, you're probably living better than you've ever lived. So, of course, it was the best time for you.
Yep.
But it's funny, man, every generation. When I first started in the business with Vern Gagne in 1987, I'd sit around at the end of the day. Vern never hung out much, but Greg Gagne, myself, Wahoo McDaniel, and Ray the Crippler Stevens, because Ray and Wahoo were the two bookers for Vern Gagne. So, I was the new guy, right? For whatever reason, they didn't throw me out of the building. So I just got to hang around with those guys and listen to them tell stories. You know, at 5 o'clock, everybody would hit the refrigerator in the concession area and grab a couple beers and go listen to Ray Stevens and Wahoo tell stories.
Crazy, right?
From that point forward, from their perspective, their era before they retired from the ring was absolutely the best era of wrestling. If you were big in the 80s were the best time. For me, it was like, no, the 90s were the best time. And right now, 2025 is the best time. It all depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, man. I used to go to those shows in Duluth. You know, come from Thunder Bay, we'd go down. I'd go see the Road Warriors. Are you kidding me? So I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember AWA was our Bible. You know, it was right across the border from us. But looking at, you know, I remember Pentagon when Pentagon got into Lucha Underground. They were going to fire him. He wasn't getting it. He wasn't clicking with the American psychology. He couldn't pick it up. And nobody was getting through to him. And, you know, with just a little bit of guidance, look where he is now. So, you know, he's not new either. But when he was doing things in Lucha Underground, we're talking 2015, you know, 10 years later, just in that 10-year span, the way the business has become full circle again, you know, and being reborn and whatever. And now it is what it is. Now it's on Netflix. Now it's here. Now it's there. Now, you know, you got the beginning talents making over $2 and $3 million is what I'm hearing. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's unbelievable to even fathom starting in 1984, 85, seeing what's going on now. You know, you used to hear the word trans and you used to get all, you know, 5 or 6 guys in a car and staying, you know, 4 or 5 guys in a hotel room. That still happens, but these were the stars back then.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of normal. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to try. And you see now that dudes are showing up in private planes. It's like, yeah, something's going on. It must be, I don't know. I don't know what your opinion is, but it's got to be a miserable fucking place to be, brother. If you're trying to get in that circle, or you're trying to, wrestling to me, it was being in the WCW locker room was probably one of the most insecure places I've ever seen. Just a lot of people with extreme mental health, major insecurity, and it was almost like, I've never been to jail, only once in Spain, but that's another thing. It's almost like the prison is running the prison, right? You don't know who to talk to. You don't know what to say. It's the etiquette. It's this, that. So it was very fucking intense being around WCW. Everybody was on edge. Everybody, if you weren't in the elite group, like any wrestling company has, you were not good friends with anybody around you. It was a miserable experience if you were weak in the heart. So I can only imagine what it's got to be like around those dressing rooms of I guess AEW and WWE. I don't really watch as much as I used to, but holy fuck, I can only imagine the stress that those young people have. I wouldn't even know what to do with that.
It's a different world, but it's fun to watch the business now. It's fun. I love to see the business grow, and WWE is growing so fast. I mean, it's beyond comprehension. I think nobody would have ever really seriously imagined.
But it's so expensive. It's not for the original fan who got you there. I've seen those prices for meet and greets or whatever it is at WrestleMania. The fan who supports the product can't attend those events, can't pay for that stuff. Well, who's going to pay $25,000 for a dinner?
But there are events that are affordable, and not everything is as expensive. I mean, let's face it, WrestleMania is a lot of people take out a second mortgage to go to WrestleMania.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? Just buy a PlayStation.
There. I don't even live that far. I live in Wyoming, northwestern corner of Wyoming. So it's just a short hop from here to Salt Lake. It's about an hour flight.
Right.
It's about an hour and 20 minutes from Salt Lake City to Vegas. But even for me, that's a $1,500 ticket. And you got people coming from all over the world coming into Vegas. It's ridiculous the amount of money that's being spent, but
that's insane.
The market will bear it.
Hey,
for now,
it's product, supply and demand, baby. I'm in cartel country. You don't got to tell me. I know all about it.
So I want to go back to Mexico just a little bit. So
yeah,
you're Canadian, you're 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
What made you go, I'm going to go to Mexico and wrestle?
Because after that first stint in Montreal, the company was bought by Vince, and a lot of those things happened. A lot of talent went to New York, and there was really nothing going on. So I was like, I just got my foot in the door. So I'm going to go to Los Angeles and see what I can do with music. And it was right around that time the unfortunate incident happened with Dino Bravo. And a lot of my friends were not in that situation, but on that level with those kind of people. And a lot of them were dying. There was a lot of things were happening. There was a really big problem in Montreal with the Hells Angels and another club. And that environment on the street was there was only one way to go, and it wasn't going to last long. So I wasn't raised that way. And I always knew inside of me, I had more to do and more to give. So I had to make a real big decision. It was like either stay here and die or go to jail, or leave and find whatever it is, because you're throwing away sports. So go see what you can do. So I went to, I was floating around a little bit, working in the gyms, working in nightclubs. And this actor, Michael Pere, who was in Streets of Fire and a couple other movies in the 80s, he was a real big, heartthrob kind of guy. He was doing Eddie and the Cruisers. He was Eddie from Eddie and the Cruisers.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
And I was his trainer in the gym. And he was like, yo, I got another movie in Italy. Do you want to come to LA and house sit for me? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I went to LA. He said, I got you a job on the weekends in this club called Rubber. Mickey Rourke and Billy Idol's wife own it. And all my friends from New York. So it was like, fucking guys from New York nightlife. What do you expect? What kind of club do you think it was? So this is when the Harley Davidson boom happened, when Mickey and Joey's, which was Giuseppe Franco and Mickey Rourke, they had this hair salon, and it was a hot dog stand. So all the Harley Davidsons would go from there to this club Rubber. And I was like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm seeing here, because I'm working at the door at the VIP room. In comes Bruce Springsteen, then comes Paul Stanley, then comes Cher. And I'm like, and then all the people were wanting to get in. And I'm like, I'm going to take these fucking guys' money. Of course you can get in, but it costs this much. So I was doing that for a long time. And then this ex-girlfriends of Michael's said, hey, we've been watching you. You kind of know what you're doing. You're young. You got a hip look. Because I had my hair like Billy Idol. And she said, I'm managing this group, and they need somebody who can do a world tour with MTV. They have the #1 single in the world right now. Have you ever heard of them? They're called Milli Vanilli. And I was like, never heard of them. And they said, well, if you want the job, we leave tomorrow. So you got to go. You got to say yes or no tonight. And I said, yeah, fuck, why not? So the next day, I went to Bakersfield, California, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I was 17 years old. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I'm looking around, and I see these two guys arguing, like coming to blows, like fucking arguing. One's screaming in German, the other one's screaming in French. And they got papers, and they're shaking the papers. And I walk up and I said, hey, how you doing? And I'm this guy, and I'm doing this, and I was told that I'm gonna be your security. And they were like, can you help us? And I was like, I guess. And they said, what does that say? And I was like, that's your fucking song that's #1 in the world. Those are your lyrics. And they were like, and I was like, oh, fuck. I knew right then and there.
Whoa, you knew.
I knew from the beginning. Us three knew, and the producer knew. Because what they did was, you remember Terrence Trent D'Arby?
Yeah.
He had the braids and the suit. He was the original guy they picked to be Milli Vanilli. And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. So they went to a nightclub, and they found these two other guys, Rob and Fab, and they were breakdancers. And they said, we want to make a video of this song. Can you guys do the choreography? And so they got the braids, they got the whole thing. The fucking song went #1. They took the demos, they took everything, and they bailed to LA. They just fucking left, and they told everybody it was them. And the producer was like, he finally found me. He says, listen, if you don't tell these two motherfuckers, they're on the MTV tour. If you don't fucking tell them to pay me my percentage, I'm going to tell the world. I've got the original tapes. I got this, I got that, I got that. So he was chasing us around the world for a year and a half. And I was with Marky Mark and the fucking New Kids on the Block and Paula Abdul and all these people and Tone Loc and all these fucking Crips and Bloods and what the fuck, and Milli Vanilli. And it was those two guys coked out of their minds and me with the secret. I'm like, what the fuck do you want me to do with this? 17 years old, Eric. And I'm just like, so we get to the Grammys, after everything is kind of imploding, and they forgot who was who. And Rob sang Fabrizio's part and Fab sang Rob's part. And it was like live.
Oh no.
And everybody was just like, uh-oh. And that was it. So that was my education in LA. And then after that, I was like, somebody told me if I ever wanted to make it in wrestling, I got to go to Memphis, Japan, or Mexico. I called Mexico, and they said, look, you'll work here every day. You can't make a lot of money, but you'll learn how to do this business. And I was like, you know what? I got nothing going on. I'm going to die here. I'm imploding. And I did something very bad. I took the money from a store, and I had enough money to buy a one-way ticket. I had a pack sack with a change of clothes, and I had about $40 in my pocket, and I showed up in Mexico and never left.
So that's a fascinating story, by the way. I mean, I love origin stories. That's why the questions keep coming like this. But you get to Mexico, and they tell you you're going to work every day, but you're not going to make a lot of money. What's a lot of money in Mexico for you at that time?
Well, then that was before the money changed. So it was 3 pesos to $1. So when I started, well, I'm going to talk about that, but when I started, it was a joke because I had long purple hair and my leather jacket with spikes and, 18, 19-year-old kid. And they put me in the ring, and I was supposed to be a heel. But when I got hit, I didn't know. This was a Friday when I met them. And they said, your first match is Tuesday. I said, for what the fuck you talking about? I got a pair of jeans, boots, and I've never done this. And
so you didn't have any training at that point?
I was just working in the company in Montreal.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
But I had never gone to, where am I going to go to, how am I going to go to school? For what? Wrestling school. What are you talking about? We're talking, you know, this is late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So I did the match. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. I was scared to death. When I went in the ring, the babyface hit me and I just fell on the floor and rolled out. And I just laid on the floor. I didn't know what the fuck to do. But all these women threw themselves on top of me. Just like that. And nobody knew what was going on. So we got out of that mess. I went back in the ring. They hit me. I said, I'm scared to death here. I'm going to end up really hurting somebody because I'm coming from street gangs and stuff like that. I'm going to either stab one or shoot one or something.
Because you don't know how to throw a working punch at this
I didn't even know what the fuck are you talking about work? I didn't know what a work was. So I'm on the floor and all these women are on top of me and the baby faces came out and the women started hitting the baby faces. So the next day in the office, they were like, this is, you know, they fired me. They said, you finish your match tonight, but then you got to go back to Canada. You're not on it. You just be a fucking heel. So I went to the show, same thing, all girls, no guys in the arena, all girls. And nobody knew what was going on. When I came out, it was Justin Bieber, Elvis, Beatles, all mixed into one. It was an explosion. No, because Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Poison had just got on MTV after 20 years of the government, 15 years of the government banning rock and roll. They had put MTV on. And the week that MTV happened, Vampiro shows up. So it was that. And it was like, holy fuck. So they said, this is impossible. You know, you're not listening. I said, I don't know what I'm listening to. Look at the fans. It's not me. So within 2 weeks, the arena went from, 90% guys and 10% girls to 100% girls when I was on the card. And I was working. So the first week that when it exploded, it really exploded. It had nothing to do with wrestling. I couldn't give you a headlock if you paid me $1 million. I don't know any fucking wrestling holds. I don't know, maybe know two. And I do them both really badly. Because I was working sometimes 3 and 4 times a day, Monday to Sunday. Nobody believes that, but I'm not the only one. But I remember one day I worked 11 times in one day.
So let's go back to the money part. That's what started this off. So what kind of money were you making when you were working 11 times in one day?
So that 1 week when I did that marathon, I got paid $400. And I was ecstatic. I called my mom. I said, I made $400. I made money the first time in my life. I was fucking a millionaire. The promoter called me over and he said, listen, you stupid ass. You should be charging $2,000 a match. You're working 5 times a day. You do the math. And within 3 to 4 months, I was charging that and making that.
Why did you leave, man? Well, I mean, you had the women and the money. Why would you leave?
Because I wasn't fulfilled spiritually. That's not why I got into it. I'm a storyteller. I believe in creating emotion in stories and telling a story. They created this persona of a heartthrob, teen idol. And I was like, wait a second. I'm a criminal, belong to street gangs. I'm a punk rocker. I'm homeless. And I will rob your fucking house if I knew where you lived. And you're letting me go out with your daughter? I hated it. And it really almost killed me. And it drove me insane. I was walking to the gym and used to have newsstands on the corner. I'm not joking. I took a picture of it on the old fucking cameras with the flashes because I knew that someday it was going to come in handy. There were a million magazines, but there were 25 magazines that had to do with sports and gossip and celebrity romance and all that shit. I was on all 25 covers with 25 different interviews.
Wow.
I looked at and I said to the person, I said, I don't speak Spanish. Who's doing these interviews? What are they saying? And it was all, I'm in love with the girls and they're so beautiful. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I was depressed from day one because I was like this kid from the street who made it. And I wanted to fly the flag of rebellion and punk rock and saying, if I can do it, you can do it. You know, I've guardian angel mentality all my life. But when that happened and they put me on rock star status without even going to the gym, without even being disciplined, without even having a guide or a mentor.
So what you really had was imposter syndrome.
Sure, probably.
You,
I mean, you're 19 years old. You go from living on the street under a car to making, you know, $4,000 and $5,000 and $6,000 a day in the early 90s and having extreme amount of excess and access to whatever, no limit. Right. And you're 19 years old. That's not healthy.
No,
not good.
You're lucky you survived it.
Yes, I am. I am.
You survived it.
Yeah, I am. I'm grateful. Very grateful.
Well, I'm grateful for some of the questions we're going to get to here in just a second. Super Dave, let's throw some up here, man. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Are you digging it?
I love this. I love doing these. I love it, especially with somebody that I know that I don't really know, because I get to learn about you, and you've had a fascinating life.
I'm living one now, brother.
AOTV Productions wants to know, hey, Vampiro, is there any current wrestler that has impressed you recently?
No.
It's hard when you don't watch a lot.
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, no. And I'm not being rude. Yes. And this is a good chance to clear some air.
Good. That's what we're here for.
Chris Jericho. There are rumors that there's a problem between him and I. I've never had a problem with him. I've never spoken bad about him. Wrestling's a very jealous territory. It's a very insecure territory. I know for a fact that he doesn't really like me. He said some things about me. He's mentioned some things between us and Mexico from the past. I've apologized. I want to do it here again. If there's anything I've done that I can remember or I cannot remember, from my heart and soul, forgive me, Chris. I did not know what I was doing. Too immature. But why I say I like Chris Jericho, because he's my generation. He's a little bit older. He's lasted a long time. And, you know, he came from nothing, and he really worked hard to get where he's at. He's played, you know, he's not innocent either. He's played the game. He knows what he's doing. He's no dummy. But to see somebody from my generation still at the top, that impresses me. And I tell young wrestlers, if you're going to model somebody, you know, don't look at these guys doing Cirque du Soleil and all these fucking somersaults and weigh 150 pounds and are the goats. Fuck all that. Look at the guys who have been there and has stayed there and are still in the position of power that they're in. That's who you want to be like. And they have alternative streams of income. So Chris is a great example for the new, and he impresses me.
He's really, same here. I'm a big fan of Chris Jericho. He's been able to he's a very creative guy, and he can recreate himself anytime he wants to. And I'm waiting, and I've been watching him now for the last year or so, and I think we're going to see one more really amazing run out of Chris Jericho.
When's his contract up?
I don't know. I don't know.
When you see that new Chris Jericho push, now we know when his contract.
Yeah, when he shows up looking like he's at about 12% body fat.
Yeah.
Hey,
God bless him. And God bless all of them. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, he's learned the business of the wrestling business, learning the inside of the ring and how to be a performer and the etiquette and the culture, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. All that is, I mean, it's a tough road, and you learn.
It's a very jealous road.
But when you can reinvent yourself at will, it's a pretty cool thing. Let's get some more questions. Who do we have here, Super Dave? Everbrand, huge fan of Vampiro, huge fan of Sting. I love the idea of them together. So did I. Original Crow, Sting and Vampire. A little City of Angels Crow. What fell apart there with that team and the feud? God, I don't remember that, Vamp. You?
Yeah, it didn't fall apart. It ran its course. It was perfect.
Good.
I saw Steve in Philadelphia, and I said, hey, I haven't seen you since WCW. There's been, you know, I'm clearing the air with you too. There's a lot of things that have been said, and I know you weren't really happy with me because of the face paint. And come on, we're adults now. Just don't deny I'm not accusing. No finger pointing. Hear what I have to say. I know you don't really like me, but I want to say how much I respect you. I learned more from my time with you professionalism, etiquette, timing, just how to carry the persona, and how to understand it doesn't matter who you're in the ring with. You're there to do business. And the things he taught me without teaching me, I was very grateful. And then we spoke about religion and stuff like that. And you know what? I said, hey, and this really meant a lot to me because he said, you know what? I misjudged you. And he gave me a hug. And I said, would you mind signing this picture for me? And it was a picture of me and him. And he signed it and he wrote some scripture. And I got that framed and it's in my small little office. I really don't have a lot that I've kept, but I kept that because it was so good to say thank you to somebody that wasn't expecting it. So yeah, it was great. So there was nothing wrong. Nothing fell apart. It was great.
Yeah, I thought it was a great combination.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. What year did you come to WCW?
97?
97?
Something like that. Like 97, I think.
All right. What do we got, Super Dave?
What's that?
Oh, I said, what do we got, Super Dave? We got some more questions. E. Wilkie, 1993. Whoa, hey, E. Wilkie, thank you very much, brother. I don't have a question, but I just want to thank Eric and Vampiro for everything they did in WCW. We were blessed, brother. We were blessed.
Yes, sir.
How many people get to do what we got to do?
Not a lot, brother.
It's such a unique opportunity.
It's a blessing.
It is a blessing. And it's funny how everybody gets, I mean, I'm listening to your kind of origin story and the way you weaved your way and dodged bullets and axes and gangs and bikers and everything else on the way there. But what a fascinating story you have. But you hear a lot of really interesting stories when it comes to professional wrestling. It's the oddest of all odd jobs, but it was cool.
If you're born a gypsy, you're more than likely going to end up in pro wrestling, for sure.
Yeah, gypsy. That's a good way of putting it because you got to love being on the road.
Yeah, you got to love not being able to just either have it all or have nothing. You know, That's wrestling. Wrestling's a big roller coaster. So you gotta. And it's really hard to be in a relationship because you're dragging somebody else through that. So you got to be really, I think today's day and age, you need a lot more communication and you got to understand, you got to prepare yourselves as a couple that what's about to happen. So I think today's generation has it a lot worse for sure because of social media, right? Can you imagine if we had social media back in the day? Oh, fuck. Oh, I just said it back in the day. Boom.
Yeah, yeah, I do it too. What is speaking of, what was available to you, what's the one thing that you wish existed back when you started in the business?
Mentors who you didn't have to force. I'm speaking from my own experience. I was thrown into a Goldberg status, above that at a very young age. And nobody taught me how to be responsible with money, with my health, with the excess, how to go slow. So I really think, and I've seen it, we've all seen it, unfortunately there's been suicides. There's been, how many divorces do we know about? There was no real mental health preparation or somebody to teach us how to be famous, how to handle that pressure. Yeah. So and today's agents don't put that responsibility on them because nobody taught them either. So I truly wish that component was there, just not to be so isolated. You're in a room that you live with guys and girls. You're on the road together every fucking day, but you don't know the real names, and you're too scared to talk. And you go into the corner and you call your wife or your husband, right? When no one's listening, it's like I wish that there was some movement to break down that wall of insecurity and people could talk about their fears and get the mental health thing out of the way. I think that would have made it a lot easier on a lot of people.
And I can imagine it coming in as young as you were. I mean, literally coming into the business, not knowing anything about the business and wrestling. I can only imagine. I haven't spent any time in Mexico. So, I mean, wrestling in general is its own little subculture with its own etiquette. And the right way to walk into a room and the wrong way to walk in the room if you're the new guy, and right room to dress in and the wrong room to dress in, and nobody gives you a clue.
No.
That would have been nice, right?
Yes, thank God I had that dressing room that I spoke about earlier when I was so young, because they told me. They didn't wait till I made a mistake. They said, listen, don't make this mistake. Do this, 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 this. So even something as simple, with my first day, I did the audition. It was a Sunday or something like that. And Terry Taylor said, hey, I want Eric to see you. Can you stay and do Monday Nitro? I said, sure. And I was like, I'm going to get this fucking job. Who's Eric? I don't know. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to get this job. And I just came from Mexico, I borrowed money to get there, to buy a plane ticket one way. I said, I'm not coming home without a job. I don't give a fuck. So I went to Monday Nitro, fired up. But when I got to the dressing room, the first thing I did was look for Luger and Sting. I introduced myself and I stuck out my hand and I was heartbroken. They both looked up at me and they just looked back down at their book. They didn't even say hello. They didn't even say, go fuck yourself.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, no. Oh, boy. And then it got back to me. My good friend Carlos put out the word that I'm a very well-loved person. So I got into WCW and I had the whole dressing room against me. So it was kind of like, oh, this is going to be fun. So the etiquette of knowing, going to a veteran and saying, hey, it's my first day here. Where may I change? Those things aren't taught anymore. They're taught by smacking the shit out of a guy when he's already made the mistake. But don't let somebody go through that. Tell them, hey, if there's a vet that comes in, you give him your chair. You show everybody, you give them your chair. You say hello. You go and look. You don't wait till they come to you. You get up and go. That kind of stuff really doesn't exist anymore. And I did a show the other day, and there was a girl, there was a vet, somebody I fucking carried his bags. I'm just like, whatever you say, brother. And he went out to make a call. I came back, and there was a girl sitting on his chair, and his bag was right there, everything. And she was just sitting there.
Oblivious.
And I was like, I told the guy, go out of the room. I called the promoter. I said, listen, I'm not the one to do this, but I have no trouble. You've got to get her out of that fucking chair, and you got to tell her to go apologize. So, that kind of stuff, I think it's missing, because now you see the young stars today, they're so fucking arrogant. They're so arrogant. And you hear them talk. It's like, look, motherfucker, doesn't matter if you're on Netflix or not. The pen is mightier than the sword. You piss the booker off with the office, they click, your fucking name is gone. Don't forget where you came from. And I think that kind of stuff needs to be instilled all over again from ground zero.
I agree. Super Dave, we have some more questions here before we wrap this up. AOTV Productions again says, Vampiro, were you around when Russo joined WCW? What was your impression of him, and how do you feel about him now?
I was there, and we got along. When he came in, everybody was up as, kissing his butt the best they could. And everybody was his best friend. He gave me the opportunity with ICP, and he hated them from WCW. And we spoke as friends more than anything to do with work. He was like, every time I put you with somebody, they never come back. The ICP or the Misfits or this or that or whatever it was. It's like, well, fuck, So he says, I got to wait, and I got to start you all over again. So I didn't have any trouble with him. He was very kind to me. And today I call him a friend. I don't speak bad about anybody. I speak bad about myself and my errors and my poor judgment, but I wouldn't want to be in his position. I certainly wouldn't want to do what you did. I don't know how you remain sane. I really don't.
Well, I had my moments. Come on now. You remember, there were moments.
But look, that company, with the $1 million babies and the $1 million wannabe babies, and then the babies, and then guys like me. I mean, holy shit! I don't envy. I don't know. You're the GOAT.
Well, I always tell people I'm really, really grateful that I had that opportunity. I'm really glad I did it, but I would never, ever choose to do it again. Never.
You know what?
There's not enough money.
Yeah, no, but you filled your you filled your soul. That you had your fill. Yep. You could go back and you could be very successful, just like we all could. But you're done. You're full. You're enjoying this now. So why ruin that?
Yeah, and I love new challenges. Super Dave, Let's challenge us with another question. Lawrence Laza Johnson. G'day, Eric. Vampiro, greetings from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Appreciate the cameo you did for me, Vampiro, asking your advice, etc. So you must have done a cameo for this gentleman in Brisbane, Australia.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here. And Chet Martin, question for you both. Would WWF have been able to come back and eventually win the ratings war had they not had Stone Cold Steve Austin? I'll give you my take first. Yes, I think once Vince McMahon made up his mind that he was going to follow WCW and go after the 18 to 49-year-old men and create, after the NWO era, create the Attitude Era to try to take that 18 to 49-year-old audience. Look, Steve Austin was the best opportunity, but if it wouldn't have been for Steve, if Steve would have been plucked, off the face of the earth by a UFO, somebody else would have been in a similar role. So I think it would have ended up the same way. I think Steve and Mike Tyson and Vince McMahon, that trifecta was magic. It would have been hard to recreate that magic, but they would have come up with something close. What do you think, Ben?
I think that if you compare it to music, you have the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, you have Motley Crue, and you have Guns N' Roses. Each band plays really great rock and roll, but they're hot until the next band comes out with their single. So I think it's cycle, and I think the fans decide. It's not so much the angle, the storyline, or the effort or the investment. That has everything to do with it. But I think that the fans' momentum, they just, you can only see Guns N' Roses. I mean, how many times you want to go see Guns N' Roses? Metallica, they play Mexico 5 nights in a row. I ain't going to go see those motherfuckers 5 nights in a row. I'll see them once, and I'll see them in 10 years. It's enough. So I think that people's tastes change normally. You have pepperoni pizza all the time. Then all of a sudden you try chicken wings. You want something different. So I just think that it would have taken a natural progression, and then it would have circled back to us. It would have been a figure 8. That's just the way it goes.
Yep. Vamp, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this. We've got one more question here. Let's get it out there. Nitro. Hey, Vampiro, always wondered where you were during the final Nitro. Also, did your contract stop you being a part of the invasion?
I had broken my neck a month or two before that, so I was kind of laid up still. And no, my contract did not. I spoke with WWE, and Mr. Pritchard told me that my personality and my character and my gimmick wasn't marketable. They couldn't come up with anything for me, and they were going to terminate my contract. That's okay.
It all worked out.
Yeah, I went straight to Japan. No problem.
Vamp, I really had fun talking to you, brother. This is fun.
Yeah, I loved it, man. I'm grateful.
Need to do this again.
I would hope so. We've been talking to a friend, and we have a common friend, and let's see if he finally gets back to me. Let's see what happens.
Well, whether he does or not, we'll do this again. We'll have
yes,
fun
sir.
one way or the other.
I had a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. You
bring me back and let me interview you.
It's a date.
Let's
do that.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. We'll set it up. Thank you so much for joining us here. And for those of you who joined us on YouTube, thank you very much. If we didn't get to all your questions, we'll run them again the next time we do in 83 weeks, which I think is tomorrow night. So join us tomorrow night. Vamp, I look forward to seeing you again. And let's do this again soon. We'll be in touch, brother.
Yes, sir. Big hugs, man. Thank you.
Good night. Love you, bro.
Me too, bro. Love you. Bye.